Hi Eddie. Sven Botman played for the under-21s last night, came through an hour. How is he? Was he all right? No ill effects?
Well, I don't know how he is this morning. It's quite early. But he was good last night. We exchanged messages after the game. Seemed in a really good place. I think that's always a big step. You play the first game. He looked good on the pitch. I thought his movement was good. Typical Sven. He used the ball well. He looked commanding. Big presence on the pitch. He's a massive player for us. We've missed him. So that's a big step forward. But he's still a little bit to go before available for selection.
So no change in terms of a time frame or schedule for him regarding being in your first team squad?
Well, I think we were looking right to the end of December, beginning of January. That's the plan. We're still on track with the plan. I think with the length of time that he's been out, ideally he gets 2 to 3, maybe even more games to get his rhythm back because obviously a big step back into the Premier League.
Have you got any new injury concerns ahead of the Cup quarter-final?
Don't believe so. Still have training today, of course, so we look forward to that. But at the moment, I think from Saturday, a clean bill of health.
It's an interesting situation with midfielders because Joe Linton got that 5th Premier League yellow card at the weekend, but he can play against Brentford. But I think Sean Longstaff is suspended, isn't he, after 2 Cup bookings? So you'll have to do something different in midfield over the next few days. But in terms of Joe Linton, it's great to have him available for a big game, but just a blow to lose him for Ipswich.
Yeah, as you say, slightly strange with how the booking system works now. So yes, we lose Sean and then we lose Joe Linton for the game at the weekend. But I think that is a position that we have strength in depth with Joe Willock coming back to fitness, Louis Miley playing again last night, looking good. That's a huge lift for us. Midfield is looking strong.
Brentford, you played in the league not so long ago. How instructive is it to look back at that match when it comes to thinking about how tomorrow night could go? Because I don't think the two teams tend to change the way they play, both very attacking.
I think it is an interesting game to look back on for various things, of course. Brentford went to Chelsea and played a different system. Although they don't, as you say, they don't deviate too far from their principles. So that's an interesting dynamic for us to consider. But ultimately, I think when you look back at the game, we weren't where we needed to be in the defensive aspects of our game, mainly, which was a strange one for us off the back of the Liverpool performance, which was very good. I know we conceded 3 goals, but in the main, very good. But we just weren't there defensively, and ultimately that cost us the game. So I think good to see us back to our defensive best against Leicester, where we restricted them to very few opportunities on goal, protected our goal really well. I think that's going to be the big thing for us. I think if we can do that, we back ourselves to score goals.
And with it being such a big match in a competition that means a lot to you and your players, and potential of another semi-final ahead of you if you can get the job done, how important is it that this tie is at St James's Park in front of a full house? Yeah,
well, when the draw came out, I think that was what gave us a great feeling, the fact that we know we have such a powerful force at home with our supporters, as long as we create that positivity with our performance, which we did against Leicester. Thought the supporters were really good with us. And yeah, I think when you play these games, the cup games, the one-off games, and an opportunity for a semi-final, we hope that that's something that can lean the game in our favour. But it's going to come down to us executing our plan well and continuing where we left off with the good feeling against Leicester.
Thanks, Rosa. Keith?
Hi, Eddie.
Hi.
When you look at this season so far, it feels a bit like you take one step forward and then maybe 2 steps back.
Don't say it.
No. How important is it that you go into this game tomorrow and you back up what you did on Saturday against Leicester?
Yeah, I can't disagree with you, Keith. I mean, I think that's been a frustration for all of us. And we don't want to take those 2 steps back. We want to keep moving forward. I think we'd love to see Leicester as a turning point in our season in terms of that ability to put a run together. I think the feeling was really good against Leicester in a sense that I think the dynamic of the team looked really good. The partnerships, the relationships within the team were strong. It was a really good attacking performance. 27, I think, shots at goal, a high XG. One of those games where you think, well, we looked a top team. And now a few days later, we want to just see that same team in evidence again, and commit to what is an important competition. We know the importance of this game. That's not lost on any of us, but we want to see that consistency in our performance.
And when you think back a couple of years to that cup run to the final, I know obviously it didn't end the way you wanted, but what's your sort of overriding feeling when you look back then? Because it felt like in the build up to it, like just the whole city kind of all came together as one.
Yeah, I remember some tough early rounds. I think the Tranmere game was difficult. Palace game was difficult. Then, of course, I think the abiding memory is the semi-finals against Southampton, which were both home and away great occasions, and you had that feeling that we were on the verge of going to a really exciting phase of the competition. We're now on the part where before we get to that semi-final where it feels a lot closer, and these games are difficult. These games are, especially whenever you play Brentford, it's a difficult game, home or away. Tough team to play against. Set plays will be really important for us again, because they're very good in that respect. We're very good in that respect as well, so that'll be an interesting dynamic to the game. But I think it's the attitude. Ultimately, we have to show how much the game means to us.
And you're in this game, I guess, like all other footballers and football managers, because you want to win silverware. It's been such a long time for this football club, 69 years. I know there's a couple of rounds to go to even get there, but what would it mean for you, whether it's now or in the future, to bring silverware back to this football club?
Well, you're right in the respect that is what we're here for. That's what I made it very clear when I came to Newcastle, what I wanted to achieve. And I know I speak on behalf of the players, on all the coaching staff in that respect. So when you get to this part of the competition, I think it's important that we recognise that's our goal and what we're trying to do. It's not easy to do, as everyone knows. But these games take huge importance when you get to the latter stages.
Thank you. Dawn?
Hi, Eddie.
Hi.
Confidence. It's all about confidence, isn't it? Which presumably the Leicester game will have injected a lot of into the team. And when teams don't have it, and we've seen that most lately with Man City, you can see what happens. How critical was that result against Leicester in terms of approaching this game?
Yeah, I agree. I think confidence is huge for any team, us included. I think you could see the attacking players start to feel really good the moment we go 2 to 3-0 in front, and there was that extra bit of quality and time that confidence gives you. You had to have an extra touch or an extra pause before you make your next decision. I think we've been on the verge of producing those kind of displays for a while, but we haven't, for whatever reason, either got the first goal or the second goal to really consolidate some really good performances. And now you hope that we can be a bit looser in our play, which is so important from an attacking sense. You have that freedom and that ability to create and take chances in the final third. Hopefully that can, we can gain that from the Leicester match.
And on a similar theme, the psychology of footballers is so fascinating, and we've talked this season about how Newcastle have played so well against some of the top teams and yet not so well against some of the lower teams in the division. That changed against Leicester. Can you put your finger on what that is, what that change in psychology is, or what makes that change in psychology?
No, you're right. Again, that psychology is, I wouldn't say underestimated. I don't think anyone underestimates really the power of the brain and the power of your thoughts, the power of the feeling of the team. But to fully understand it, that's not easy. So I can't give you one answer. That's why we haven't performed as well in certain games than others. I think that there's always 4 or 5 things that go into that, not just one point. And a lot of the time it is, even in the games, it's moments. It's fine margins between scoring, not scoring, and then the game being totally different. I think we felt that against West Ham, against Brighton. Games that could have gone a totally different way if the ball had bounced a slightly different way. And that's not putting it down to luck. That's just the reality. I felt those games were very much ours if things had fallen differently for us.
Thanks, Don. We'll start with George and then to Luke.
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
Obviously, it's a huge game in its own right. Semi-finals don't come around very often. But how important is it as a game, as a tone setter as well, to show and demonstrate progress, both to supporters but also to your own players?
Yeah, I think for everyone internally, it's important that we feel that we're improving and we're gaining momentum in our season. I do feel we can still grab the season and have a very successful season, but games like this become pivotal to that, I think. That positive energy that we created against Leicester, you want to sustain and you want to harvest. And I think then we can achieve great things. But likewise, the opposite can happen if we don't have the right attitude to this game. So it's absolutely fundamental we set that, and we've tried to set that in the last few days.
Thanks, George. Luke and then Ian.
I've done some research. This will be the 134th attempt by a Newcastle team to win a domestic cup since they last won the FA Cup. How does that make you feel when you hear that sort of number?
It must have been a late night for you.
just ask Mark. And Mark.
How does that make me feel? Yeah, that's I know how long it is in terms of years, that you've put it a slightly different way, a different context. But I think the willingness has been there from previous teams. We want to be the team that can get over the line and achieve something special. But as you go through the competition, these rounds are very difficult, and nothing will be taken for granted from our side. But we know if we can hit the correct levels of performance as we did against Leicester, then I think we're a match for anyone in the division.
If you can get to the semi-final, again, just trying to put it in the context of the club's history, which I know you were fully aware of when you come, you'd be the first Newcastle manager to get to 2 domestic cup competitions since Stan Seymour, the first Newcastle manager to get to 2 semi-finals in any competition since Sir Bobby Robson. So it shows you how important this is in the wider context of the football club.
Yeah, and also shows how hard you've been working last night. Another
For a change.
fantastic delivery of a question, I might say. Yeah, I mean, I don't tend to waste time sort of looking back in terms of what we've done historically in that sense and trying to answer your question. It's always about the future. It's about just trying to do the best that we can in the here and now. But I think the responsibility of trying to achieve and win competitions and to elevate the club to where it should be, in my opinion, is a responsibility we take seriously at all times.
Thank you. No pressure, Ian.
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
You were talking earlier about momentum, which is something every manager strives for from his team. Do you feel that, particularly at St James's Park, you've got it? Because you mentioned the Leicester game, but your previous game before that was Liverpool, which was a similarly excellent performance. Do you go into this game now with that, not that feeling of invincibility, but that feeling of momentum at St James's?
Yeah, I feel we do. I think those 2 games have been really, really good performances. Arguably, I feel we should have won both of those games. The problem for us was Brentford was sandwiched in between it, and that was a performance where we didn't like ourselves. So, but in terms of our home performances, when you look back to the previous games before the Liverpool game, I felt they were sort of promising performances, but without delivering the actions that we needed to fully be ourselves. But it was good to see us return the last 3 games, scoring a lot of goals, creating a lot of chances. That's much more like ourselves. And we back ourselves from an attacking sense with the players that we have. Always, I think the key is to try and be resilient defensively, and it's great to see us keep a clean sheet in our last match.
And the Carabao Cup, a lot of big teams are still involved in it. So really, reaching the semi-final, although it be an achievement in itself, it's offering no guarantees, isn't it, bearing in mind who's still there?
There's never any guarantees. But you have to be there to have a chance of winning it. So I don't think we should worry about the semi-final in any way or who's left in the competition. Our only focus should be on Brentford and trying to win this match.
Thank you. We'll go to Lee, then Jordan, and then Joe.
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
The Carabao Cup final in 2023, how it was obviously painful at the time, but how useful can that experience now be to try and spur you on to get there again?
Yeah, I think the final itself can be useful if we get back to a final again. I think that will be really useful for us because I think there's a lot of experience gained, a lot of lessons learnt from that one match itself. But I don't think it's useful necessarily in this moment approaching this match. The previous experiences of the quarter-final and semi-final before, yes, I think they were really good things to go through. But I just think this is a match in isolation. This is us against Brentford, and we know their qualities. They're a very good team. They've had a really good season so far, and we're going to need to nullify their strengths, but also attack in the same way that we did in the last match.
And Martin Dubravka coming back in the team at the weekend, was that quite a common influence, an experienced player coming back in? Was he the right man, obviously, for the day?
Yeah, I thought so. I thought Martin played really well. Now, it didn't have a lot to do with his hands, which was a good thing for us as a defensive unit. But I think he's very calm in possession. I thought he gave us a really good platform to build from the back. I thought he used the ball really well. But as you say, vastly experienced, very level-headed. I think he could be really pleased with his return to the team.
Just on the win, I mean, only a few days ago it was doom and gloom around Tyneside, but it's amazing what one win can do around the place. Everyone's smiling in here today.
Are you? Maybe when I don't come in then. Maybe before I arrive. That's good to see some smiles in here. I think it's different for us. We always try to remain level. Now, of course, I feel the results more than anybody. And yes, I do take them home with me, and I do live the results. I think you have to a degree. But I think once you digest the result, you then look forward with positivity. It's the only way to act, because you know you have another chance to change the narrative. And I think for us, we did that against Leicester. Now we need to make sure that, going back to Keith's question, we don't step back. We step forward again with real positive energy and attack this game.
Thanks, Lee. Jordan?
Morning. When you consider Lewis Hall's current form, is he the best or one of the best left backs in the country on current form?
Yeah, I think he's played very well this season. I mean, I think he has been very consistent, which has belied the team, really. I think he's been a real shining light for us in terms of being the same Lewis, regardless, home or away. And for someone so young, that is not easy to do. I think his technical delivery this year has been outstanding in all phases, build-up phase, attacking phase. I think his final ball can improve, but it's great to see him with 2 assists at the weekend. I think defensively he's been pretty good. I think there's areas again for him to improve and develop, but I think he's certainly moving in the right direction. And I think for someone so young, how he's handled himself, the maturity he's shown on and off the pitch, it's been really high level.
12 months ago when we were speaking about Lewis using the word patience, does the same situation apply to Willis Soulan? How much inspiration can he take from Lewis's journey over the last 12 months?
Yeah, they're very different players, of course, but with any young player, I think you need a degree of patience. That's not just the player, that's the player's representatives, family, friends, almost that you're on a path of development at 16, 17, 18, 19, whatever age you are, and even sometimes older, where you're trying to get into the team. You've got to develop your game. There's no point standing still and just, well, I want to play and wait for your opportunity. You've got to develop your game, so when you come into the team, you're able to stay in the team. So we encourage development all the time. We work with our players really hard to try and improve them. And Will would fall into that category where, again, yesterday worked extremely hard at his game. And we hope that work will bear fruit at some stage in the future.
Thanks, Jordan. I'll go to Joe, then Rebecca, and then Craig.
Hi, Eddie. You mentioned before about the options you've got available to you in midfield. Where does Lewis Miley sort of fit into that?
Yeah, Lewis is an outstanding young player. He's had a really difficult time with injuries, so we've had to nurse him back, and I felt the right path was for him to play games. So played last night, albeit a short period, because he'd be involved with us on Wednesday, to get his rhythm back, because I think that's a really underrated thing, and a lot of the time players sort of rush that final part. So I think when Lewis now plays in the first team, he will be at a really good level because of the games that he's had. But also there's a fierce competition for places in that area. Look at the starting 3 that we had on Saturday, outstanding players in their own right. And then you've got Joe Willock and Sean Longstaff, 2 vastly experienced players behind those. And then Louis, and Louis is going to be an outstanding player for this club for many, many years. But we need to handle his recovery back into the team well, which I think we have. And I'd say now he's getting himself in a position where he's ready to play.
And does that need for games potentially, would it be somewhere else, maybe not at Newcastle, so when January opens, or are you very much wanting to keep him at the club to develop?
No, Louis will stay. He's too important to us.
Thanks, Joe. Rebecca?
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
Obviously, a lot of talk this morning about momentum. Just how important is that, given that we're kind of at the start of a really busy, manic Christmas period? Like, the games do come really thick and fast at this point.
Yeah, they do, and that's where, December's such an important month for any football club. But for us this year, I think it's a huge period we're going through with this competition, with the league games we have to come. I think when January turns, and we'll have a good idea of what season we're going to have. Although the league is very, very tight, and you can see again that the congestion of teams from us sort of upwards is very unlike the Premier League in previous seasons. So we're there with everybody else thinking, I'm sure everyone's thinking the same thing, you can get 2 or 3 wins together. You could put yourself in a really strong position, so that's what we're looking to do.
And also, just looking to Brentford as well, as a team, how beneficial is it to play them again in such a short space of time? I know that it's cup circumstances and it's a little bit different, but is it kind of still fresh in everyone's mind, and is there kind of a little bit of wanting to kind of right the wrongs from that game as well from the team?
Well, I think definitely from our perspective, we want to perform much better than we did in that game. We know that we fell below the levels, especially defensively, as I said, we conceded 4 goals. It was a really off day in terms of just clinical defending, especially highlighted really by the 3rd goal we conceded, which was the important goal in the game and really disappointing from our perspective, because we know Brentford are a strong team from set plays. We know that they've got good height in the team. We know that they've got some dangerous players. They transition well as well. So I think they've got various threats we need to nullify. And hopefully we do a better job.
Thank you. We'll go to Craig, then Louise.
Morning, Eddie. When the takeover went through, and even after you guys lost in the Carabao Cup final a couple of years ago, all the talk then was still of winning Champions Leagues and winning Premier Leagues. That was the stated ambition by those above you. Has there been a realisation now that actually the ambition for you guys and players in your squad, it's more FA Cups and Carabao Cups because of PSR and all of the factors around where you currently are?
Yeah, I don't think we've necessarily had those conversations. I don't think a sort of a lowering of expectations has happened sort of internally. I don't think there's been one moment where we've gone, well, we can't do this or we can't achieve that. And I don't think that's healthy either. I think from my viewpoint, I wouldn't necessarily encourage that from an internal perspective either, because your players will soon pick up if you're not ambitious or you think something's not possible. And I always like to think the impossible is possible, especially with my players. I push them to believe that we can achieve anything. In saying that, with my answer then, but there has to be some kind of realistic expectation, I think, externally, because the external pressure will harm us internally, if that makes sense. So I think the external view from media and everyone alike, I think, needs to be sort of moulded around our reality. And our reality has been obviously very different in the last 2 transfer windows.
Will you pick a team tomorrow night as if it was a cup final? Because traditionally the Carabao Cup has seen changes from teams in the top half of the Premier League. Will you pick a team as if this was a cup final tomorrow night?
Every game's a cup final, I think. I do. I think when you're managing Newcastle, you can't afford to lose any game. And certainly any team I pick is never with that view. It's always a view to, I think this team can win, and I think this team gives us the best chance of winning, and I'll certainly try to do that tomorrow.
Thank you. I'll go Louise and then Martin.
Hi, Eddie. Do you think Thomas Frank is underrated as a manager? And do you think there's some kind of snobbery about him in certain circles because he's quite pragmatic, which has really worked well for them? He's not a slave to philosophy. Is that a problem?
I don't know if he's underrated because I rate him very highly. I don't know how I'd contextualise the external view. I think he's a very good manager. I think that the job that he's done at Brentford is hugely impressive. There's certainly no snobbery to any manager as far as I'm concerned. I think when I'm watching a team play and an opposing team play, you're looking for a style of play, a principle of play, and you're looking for that to be consistent, really. Now, whatever that style is, I'm not really myself hung up on style. Really, it's about effectiveness and it's about the ability to win games. Thomas has proven over many years that he's able to produce a team that can win many Premier League games and be really tough to beat. So I think there's a lot of respect from my side to him.
No, I was just really meaning about the kind of trend that saw Vincent Kompany go to Bayern Munich when Burnley had just been relegated. I mean, he's obviously got strengths as a coach, but there does seem to be that kind of philosophy seems to have come back into fashion. You know, it's changed from the days when Alan Pardew said it should be banned in football. Philosophy. Sort of the kind of extremes.
Yeah, no, I understand the question, and I think there's no right or wrong way to do this job. I think in terms of producing a style of play, I think it's all down to the individual manager to choose his path. Now, my path is unique to me. I'm sure Thomas is unique to his view on the game, and it does tend to go in trends. I do think there is. I do see the trend that you're talking about, but I think you've just got to be true to yourself.
Thank you.
Thanks,
No
Louise. Martin?
Morning, Eddie. Has associated party transactions, which was kind of on a similar theme to what Craig was talking about, APT, which was brought in just after the club was taken over, how much more difficult has it made the possibility of Newcastle winning the Premier League and therefore making this competition even more important?
I'd say it's had a dramatic effect on sort of the speed of the journey. I can't deny that has dramatically changed due to the rules, and you can feel that change really, especially as everyone's got to grips with PSR and the actual reality of it. Because I think there was a period of time where it was unclear how it would change and what the punishments would be, and then of course the punishments became very real for the clubs. And there's nothing more sobering than a thought of a points deduction in terms of changing what you have to do to comply. So I think that's been the biggest change in our reality and what we can and can't do. And of course that will affect our ability to change things as quickly as possible from the view of winning trophies.
And is it a burning desire within yourself to win a major competition?
I think if it isn't, from my viewpoint, there's something wrong. That's what we're here to do. As a player, I was desperate to win a league, a cup, whatever it was. The desire for silverware as a player was so strong. Of course, people would tell me I never got close to doing that at all in my career, and that was a burning frustration. So now as a manager, of course, we're here to win games and set short targets and isolate games, and the next game is the most important. But ultimately, you've got a long-term vision behind that of, I desperately want to win a trophy for this football club, for the supporters here, for their patience, for their support. Since I've been at the club, nothing would please me more.
And I think, in the spirit of Luke doing some research as well, there are 6 English managers who've won something during the Premier League era, with the last potentially being as far back as 2008. Is it important for you to break that run?
That's not so much of a burning thing in my thoughts, really. I don't look at it and go, I'm English managers, and it's for Newcastle. It's for this football club. Trying to end the wait for a trophy is the burning desire.
Thanks, Martin. Just as finished, we've got a Dominic and then Kieran.
Heidi, when you talk about that burning desire, can you see it with the players as well?
Yes, it's difficult because I think with the players, and unless I sit down and have an individual conversation with them, I don't think we'd necessarily go to that point. But I think we've discussed it within team meetings, within various individual talks, because we do encourage the players to stand up and talk individually to the group. That's become very apparent. There's that same will within all of them, I think, to win a trophy here. I think they've seen the wait, they've seen the support they get week in, week out. Wherever we travel in the world, the supporters are with us, and we'd love, speaking on behalf of the players here, to reward that support with a trophy. So yeah, I think it's there, and I think it's within everyone at Newcastle now.
And with that in mind, does it feel different around the club before a big game like this, a big cup game like this?
I think there's an element of excitement that's slightly different to a league game, because you know it's a one-off. You know that you're either in or out at the end of the game, and I think that naturally brings a different feeling to the Premier League. The Premier League is it's all encompassing. It's there. You can't escape it. But of course, the league table's forming and shaping with every game. But this is, I think, there's nothing like cup football. I think the atmosphere, I hope tomorrow will be matching of that of a cup competition. I think it'll be red hot, and we've got to get our supporters in the game for sure.
Thank you, Kieran.
Morning. With the rules now, do you think it's going to take a considerable amount of time to grow revenues because of the way they are?
Yes, I think it will. I think that's something separate to me, of course, but I know those talks and those discussions and the willingness to improve our revenue streams, that they're ongoing, and I'm sure they'll continue to think of ways that we can do that can help us in our PSR battle. But yes, that's for other people to probably give you more than I know.
Just on January, do you foresee there being value in the loan market, or do you think clubs will want to do you a favour necessarily?
Yeah, I think the loan market's an easy one to sort of chuck out there and go, well, let's look at loans. But the reality of those loans is very difficult, as for the reasons that you've said there, really. I mean, who is going to want to help us? Not many football clubs. So I think your loan options previous years, I think before the rule changes, I think there was probably a lot more that you could do. I think now it becomes probably more difficult.